Hello, friends. This is Professor Guglov. Today's video will be a little unusual, but I'm sure you will like it. So, get comfortable and let's go. Christy Amberg. Christy Amberg looks quite ordinary at first glance, but she is actually one of the biggest drug lords in all of Europe. The woman is currently wanted by Europol. Amberg, a native of Estonia, was sentenced to a year and 9 months in prison in 2018 for trafficking drugs she acquired through an intricate network. However, the woman's sentence was suspended under the special condition that Amberg not commit any crime for at least 3 years and meet regularly with a probation officer. There were other conditions, and Amberg eventually violated them. Authorities then declared the woman a fugitive from justice and she has been on the run ever since. Amberg's whereabouts are unknown, and she still remains one of the most wanted women in Europe. Although Christy has no history of violent crimes, she is still very dangerous. Elena Puzarevic. Elena Puzarevic was one of the most brutal human traffickers in all of Europe. The woman worked in Spain as a pimp. She was responsible for finding young Russian women and then smuggling them into Spain. Elena would pick up her victims at the airport and then take them to the club where she herself worked and where the girls were forced into prostitution. Many of these unfortunate people were deceived. They did not know what kind of work they would actually do in Spain, and so, unwillingly, turned into slaves, all thanks to Elena. There was even one case, when a girl, who was tricked by Elena into prostitution, jumped out of a window to escape. Because of this dangerous stunt, the victim ended up in the hospital, but she was able to return to her homeland. As for Elena, she was caught and sentenced to 5 years in prison for illegal detention of a person, 2.5 years for organizing prostitution, and was given another 5 years for crimes against the rights of foreign citizens. Elena will not be getting out of prison anytime soon. Adalet Shigorgazieva. Europol recently added Adalet Shigorgazieva to its list of Europe's most wanted women. Adalet was the only female member of a gang of burglars who committed house burglaries between 2014 and 2015. The Kyrgyz-born woman was involved in a total of 28 alleged burglaries committed in Slima, Malta. She and her gang broke into people's homes and took money and jewelry from there. Adalet was arrested in 2015 and then released on bail in 2017 after other members of the gang pleaded not guilty to charges of organized crime and forming a criminal organization. However, after she was granted bail, the girl disappeared and has not been seen since. Adalet is believed to have fled the country and, according to Europol, she is now one of the most wanted women in Europe. Here are the details of the robberies. The gang robbed apartments using special lockpicks and then stole only cash, gold and jewelry. It never took electronics. According to police, Adalet and her partners left behind a sign they took the owner's socks and hid them in various places in the house. It sounds strange, but it's true. Jessica Ido Samson. Jessica Ido Samson is currently one of the most wanted women in Europe. She is particularly wanted by the French judicial authorities in connection with an international human trafficking case and a money laundering operation. Jessica is an alleged member of a criminal organization from Nigeria responsible for human trafficking in all major cities in France. Ido Samson was one of 24 people who were brought to trial several years ago as part of a crackdown on a criminal organization that trafficked women. Members of the organization were accused of recruiting girls from small towns in Nigeria, transporting them to France and then forcing them into prostitution. The victims were promised that they would be able to travel around Western Europe for free, but this was a lie. These poor girls were kept in the worst conditions imaginable and all the money they earned was kept by their captors. Prosecutors in the case estimated that the criminals earned about $150,000 a month from their victims, aged 17 to 38 years old, who worked for as little as $10 a day. Jessica is believed to be the leader of this organization. Unfortunately, justice has not yet been served as she is still on the run. Jessica may be hiding in France, Germany or even Belgium. She is extremely dangerous. Julianne Dimitrion. Julianne Dimitrion is one of the most wanted women in Hawaii, currently wanted by the FBI for some of the most serious economic crimes imaginable. She along with her husband were first charged back in 2009 for mortgage fraud. Julianne and her husband even pleaded guilty to carrying out a nefarious scheme in which they used all of their influence to convince terrified homeowners to give up their homes in an attempt to improve their financial situation. But instead of helping people in distress, Julianne and her husband used the money they received from the sale of the victims' homes to spend on themselves. As a result of this mortgage fraud, many families in Hawaii ended up losing their homes. Julianne and her husband were scheduled to appear in court for sentencing in 2010, but instead went on the run and have not been seen since. According to the FBI's official website, there is currently a $10,000 reward available for any information that will help arrest Julianne or her husband John. Joan Chesimard. In 1973, Joan Chesimard was part of the Black Liberation Movement. That's when she killed a police officer named Werner Forrester by executing him on a highway. The woman was arrested for the murder and was supposed to spend the rest of her life in prison. However, on November 2, 1979, she somehow managed to escape from prison and no one has seen Joan since. It is believed that the woman sought refuge in Cuba in the 80s and may still be there today, sunning herself when she should be in prison for the rest of her life for killing a policeman. If Joan is indeed in Cuba, there is a chance she may never be arrested, despite the $1 million reward offered by the FBI. Nazira Maria Cross. Nazira Maria Cross was accused of poisoning her husband back in 2008. Her now deceased husband, Mike Cross, apparently discovered that Nazira was transferring funds from their company into his personal account. Instead of confessing everything to her spouse, the woman decided to poison him. According to the investigation, Nazira poisoned Mike in their home and then buried him near a ranch in Nevada. Before poisoning her husband, Nazira also faked her own death. The woman is referred to as a black widow and is considered extremely dangerous. After killing her husband, Nazira was questioned by police but fled the country shortly afterward and was never seen again until her arrest in Peru in 2014. Nazira Cross was a Costa Rican citizen and apparently thought she would not be caught in the South American country. But that turned out not to be the case. Peruvian police arrested Nazira at her home after 6 long years of fleeing. Nazira was then jailed where the woman was awaiting transportation to the United States where she was to stand trial for the brutal murder of her husband. Well, as I promised, the video was interesting. So, subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up. See you tomorrow. Bye for now.